Yes. Okay, good. We got a quorum. I think we're just going to get started. Good morning. For the record, Stephen Welch, Chair of the Capital Program Committee. Before we start the state's business, I'd like to confirm access of the membership. So as I see you all, Jill. See?
Here.
Gotcha. Richard?
Here.
Christy K?
Here.
Peter?
Here.
Great. And I think we're going to have police up first. So Charles, if you'd confirm, we can hear you.
I'm here and I can hear you.
Excellent, thanks. Great. So here we go. This meeting is open meeting of the Capital Program Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent pursuant to Chapter 90 of the Acts of 2021. The meeting is convened via Zoom with video and audio recording. There's a good chance this will also be broadcast via YouTube on the town's YouTube channel. Note that anything presented on Zoom may be captured by recording and broadcast to the public. Let's see, unless otherwise noted, materials provided to the members for the meeting or reviewed during the meeting are available on the town's website. Directions to find the same are on the town's website. During the meeting, I'll introduce agenda topics and speakers. Please remember to mute your Zoom audio until you're called. Direct comments and questions through the chair to avoid crosstalk and make minute taking easier for Terry. And any votes will be conducted via roll call. With that said, we'll move on to the meeting agenda. I'll call this meeting of the Capital Program Committee to order. Thursday, August 26th at a little after 10 a.m. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Richard, I think I heard you first, but Joe was a close second.
Second.
Excellent. Richard, on your motion?
Aye.
Christy K?
Aye.
And PJ? Still there. I'm an aye and that carries. We covered audio, video, no members of the public being present. There will be no public comment. Let's see, Rick, we've got some minutes to perhaps approve. Do you have the dates of those?
Just the minutes of the 19th, which are the ones that were in the meeting invite. So I think the 12th and the 26th are still with you, Stephen. So we'll get to those next week.
Okay, great. So could I get a motion to approve the minutes of the 12th?
19th.
Still moved.
Richard, quick on
Second.
the draw. On your motion? And Jill?
Aye.
Just as you go for the coffee. Christy K? And PJ?
Aye.
Okay, so that'll carry and we'll, Christy?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
just,
Yes. Yeah.
just wanted to make sure you didn't have any comments on the
Yeah.
minutes is all.
Got it.
Okay,
No,
great.
all good.
So with that said, we have fiscal year 23 capital requests with a little bit out year discussion with Deputy Chief Gibson. Charlie, the floor is yours.
Well, hopefully you're looking at the same thing I am with their Excel list of just what we have on the table for a couple of items. The first thing is the starting the top with the Marine Department building phase 2. If you may recall, we had phase 1, which was initially for site work, fencing and grading in the site. However, we had a building sort of fall in our lap last year that from Nantucket Community Sailing. So we kind of had to flip it around. So we had those funds for site work and fencing go to buy the building and put the building up. So if you were in the neighborhood out behind the airport across from Community Sailing, we now have a building there. The building we got for $75,000 and we put a foundation on it. And so it's up in the air, which is a good thing. So the phase 2 now is again going to be for site work, which is grading, fencing, and septic work to finish that project. I don't know if you want to talk about that or you want me to just go through all of them.
Yeah, why don't we just see if any of the members have any questions as we go? Maybe a little bit easier just to manage. Let me note for the record, Jason Bridges has joined us, and I believe that's it for the moment. Hi, Jason. Good morning.
Morning, Stephen.
Great. Questions or comments at this point for Deputy Chief on this project? Okay. Charlie, go ahead.
Then the second item was renovate, reconstruct basically it's replace the Harbor Master building. We had construction documents completed. We had gone out to bid on that, and the bids came back, as I guess you're saying on every municipal project, came back almost $2 million more than we had appropriated. So this $2.4 million is a supplemental on top of the, I guess, 3 million that we have there now. So just the numbers coming back is crazy. So, I mean, that's what this number is for. We had an actual bid come in. And there were only 2 bidders on that project too, if I'll pull up the, what those numbers were. But, you know, as you're seeing on every, I mean, the school just opened bids yesterday on their, the day before on their tennis courts, and they were again astounded by the numbers. They, you know, just as talking with the architect on that project, and when they had bid it out as part of a overall plan, the tennis courts, one portion was 500,000 and just came back, you know, a year later, now it's 700,000. And it's just, it's ridiculous, but
Okay.
let's see, let me just get those last bids here. Right form here.
Can I just ask, when I changed to the PowerPoint slide, did it change or did I need to unshare to reshare?
We can see the Plum software sheet on this.
Okay. Did you a moment ago see the bids?
No, didn't come up.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to find my exact ones that we did.
I can. What do you look? Charlie, looking for the bids?
Yeah, I have my Excel sheet.
I have them right here. Just give me 1/2 second. I'll stop the share because apparently I need to do it differently.
So we had one, the low bid that came in from APC Construction was 4.85 million, and the other bid was 5.96 million. We had available 3.1 million. Of that 3.11 million is a state grant. So the shortfall just on those bids that we received was 1.74 on the low bid. And these were way over our estimate from our professional estimator. And, you know, and that was just the sign of the time. So, I mean, it's a political question now that if the board wants to move forward with it or how to do it. And so this money is in here right now to keep that on the table. But we do have completed, we have all our permits approved. We have the construction documents and we have funding. We can go back out to bid again.
Okay. Questions or comments at this time? PJ?
Charlie, hey, just curious. And so no changes in the plans or anything in the last 12 months, you know, updates or anything that'll impact any bids
No.
going forward?
Nothing.
Permits in hand, nothing, just need more money.
Yep.
Yeah. Common, as you said, common issue right now. And still pleased with the plans that we have. Everything else, nothing that you guys have seen in the last year that you would think would necessitate any update to them?
No, we spent quite a lot of time on them, and, you know, spent a lot of time dealing with the coastal resiliency issues and
Right.
the FEMA velocity zones for zoning and the building foundations designed to deal with the flooding if there is any. And I mean, there's a lot of thought going into the construction to have it on the waterfront down there. But it is a waterfront dependent building. I mean, you can't really have a harbor master building at the airport. So
Across the
plus
street.
the big thing down there, and the big, you know, probably 70% of the project is a public bathroom facility and shower facility for the waterfront. That is the, people say, well, why is the building as big as it is? Well, the building is basically one large washroom on the first floor, and with all of the related handicap accessible specifications for ramps and access and door widths and turning radiuses of wheelchairs, which has driven the size. So that's just where we are.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, BJ. Other thoughts or questions at this point? Christy K?
Charlie, with sending out the proposal to receive bids, is there anything about this project that a local contractor couldn't do? And is that normal practice to release it to a local public? Or is there a specific group that you release the proposal to?
Well, this is all driven by Chapter 149 of the general laws of what we have to do. It's public construction, and any project over $150,000 of public construction has to have Division of Capital Asset Management, which is called DCAM. DCAM has to certify the contractors who are eligible to bid on it. Right now, there are no DCAM contractors on Nantucket. We have no control over who is allowed to bid or who is not allowed to bid. So DCAM drives the general contractors and also the filed subs. If the sub trades are over $26,000, DCAM requires filed sub bids, and again, all regulated by Chapter 149 of the general laws. So, and local contractors won't participate in it. I had one contractor that we had used for smaller jobs because DCAM regulates their contractor eligibility by dollar amount. So even though you're a DCAM certified contractor, you may have a cap limit of $1 million. So you're not eligible to bid on projects over $1 million. And DCAM changed their renewal process to require an audited financial statement every year for application or for recertification for DCAM. And the contractor told me, he says, I have to spend over $1,000 to an accountant to give him a certified financial statement every year. For what? And so he's not going to re-up. So the one guy I was using for smaller jobs, it's a real problem, and it's state law. And they all know it. And so any public work, you have a sort of a club of general contractors that will work. And unfortunately, and at this conversation, I said I was talking with an architect yesterday, that the town's attempt to break up projects and bring them in under smaller umbrellas really limits the people who will bid on it. Because if you're in the higher millions, you'll get the big guys coming in. You'll get the giant Suffolk contractors. You'll get the Carsons. You'll get the big guys that will go on $10, $15 million jobs. And they'll just sub it out to the smaller guys. But they will bid because they have the capacity for bonding and insurances that the smaller guys don't go. But when you get the bigger contractors involved, then your prices tend to be a little bit better. And it's sort of backfiring now in the town because we like to keep the small, basically a smaller nut to crack as opposed to, these large multi-million-dollar jobs. But I think what the reality is, it's costing the town more money to come out with these, $1-2 million jobs, because as you see with this one, we had two contractors and these were, Midland companies that, this is what they do. But if you can get the larger projects to attract the larger companies, then you tend to get a better value for your dollar. But tell that to town meeting.
Yeah.
Christy? Okay.
I'm just a comment. It would seem financially reasonable for the town to maybe assist with some of those fees for even small contractors, as opposed to getting an estimate from an off-island company, because the whole shifting a whole operation to the island is probably a third of someone's budget when they submit it, especially to a town. It's
Unfortunately, the town can't sort of do that because that's like bid tampering. You're giving preferences to contractors to bid on your jobs, and that the Inspector General doesn't allow it. The town did a couple of years ago have a seminar that we brought in people from DCAM to Nantucket to say, hey, this is how you do it, and this is what you do. And it was open to all the contractors. We didn't subsidize anything. We just had the state came down to do it, and local contractors don't want to do town work because one of the other problems is called prevailing wage, which is that the contractors have to pay union scale wages to all their employees that work on the job. So if then they have to certify that they did it. And there's been a couple of contractors that have been sort of in trouble for prevailing wage violations, and they don't want to deal with it because you don't want to have to pay, all your laborers top dollar for one job that they're working on, say, Washington Street. And then all of a sudden, the next job they're doing down the road on Union Street, you have to pay them a different rate. And it gets to be a problem, and the contractors don't want to deal with it. And again, it's reality for municipal projects throughout the state. In Nantucket's even worse because the people can't drive here.
All right, thank you.
Jill, did you have a question or?
Yeah, and again, forgive my ignorance here. I know I've heard people mention this on FinCom, but I don't know that I've ever heard a definitive answer. Is there full-time maintenance staff that can be used as, I don't know, sort of a local contractor? Do we have people on staff full-time? I know people have talked about maybe trying to get a more full-time, bigger staff. I'm not trying to get you to hire more people, sorry.
They have tried. The DPW has a couple of guys that do small maintenance work, and they're overwhelmed because anyone who's good at being a carpenter doesn't get paid enough working for the DPW, so they get hired away. The school department's having a terrific time trying to find someone who could be an electrician, because if they hire an electrician to come into the school, to change whatever it is, they have to have an electrician's license, but then they have to start paying them prevailing wage. And there's only one company right now in Nantucket that was doing it, and that was Ryder Electric, and they're just, it's astronomical of what they charge. You need to have someone come in and change a light fixture. It costs a fortune. And to have people on your staff to do it is great. But if they're good to do it, for a municipal employee, they're getting paid more to do it for a private employer. It's the market.
Tough situation for Nantucket, long-term. Good questions. Charlie, what do we have up next on your list? Public Safety Auxiliary Building?
Yeah, that was a project, again, that is, part of.
For Charlie,
Yeah.
give me just 1 second. We're just going to hit this one. It's actually an out year, but it's in sequence on the spreadsheet, and figure we'll cover it as we go. There's only a couple more projects after this. Sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
Okay, well, the auxiliary building was originally part of the police station project back in 2009. Again, trying to stay within budgets. It was an alternate on that. It was probably a cost of $1.5 million in 2009. We then didn't have enough funds for it then, so we added it into the fire project. That cost came in at $3 million as an alternate then, and there wasn't enough funding in the fire station project to complete it. So it's sitting, it's now as its own standalone project as an out year, and it's been there for a while. And this building is, it's needed to keep the fire department equipment, some police equipment that's currently scattered still. The fire station has a pump truck and a bucket truck that they keep it. One's over at 2 fairgrounds, one's outside at the moment. And then police, we have stuff over at the Loran station in Sconset, and equipment over at 2 fairgrounds that we should really have on site. And this is what the building's for. It's also for some light maintenance facilities, and that's the number we have for that. One of the other problems that we're looking at down the road is 2 fairgrounds building is falling down, it's gonna need something soon. And we're using it for a lot of storage. So hopefully we'll get the Shadbush building going for the Marine Department because they have equipment in there and that will go out there. So it's, it's a problem that I think maybe the Capcom should maybe consider bundling a lot of these into one large project. So you could maybe get one large general contractor to do them all. I think it would be quite an economy savings if we could bundle some of these things instead of trying to do them all individually. But so that's that project.
Thanks. Any questions at this point? Comments? Okay. Charlie, I think that's an interesting concept you're bringing up. It's kind of contrary to what you might think, is that the smaller companies would be able to do these more economically because they don't have, for various reasons. But when you stop to think about it, and factoring in the prevailing wage and the other complexities, this concept that there's an economy of scale and an economy of mobilization, which I think Richard or maybe PJ mentioned is a large component of the cost in getting these projects, the cost of these projects together. That's interesting. And the reason I mention is I think it's something we can try and put together or explore to determine to put together as a recommendation, but it would definitely be more of a leadership role from town manager and the select board to make that determination. What's your next project?
Seasonal housing repairs out at Sconset, and this is a high priority item. As you may recall, 2 years ago, we had funding to do the exterior building envelope of one of the buildings, which was, if you're not familiar, these are all concrete block buildings built by the Coast Guard in the 50s and early 60s, and they really haven't had any work done to them since. On the large dormitory building, we replaced the exterior doors and windows and resheathed the exterior block with insulated panels and shingle that came out pretty nice. If you're in the area, stop and look at it. So that did solve the problem of the exterior of the building failing, and we do have the building, weather tight and insulated. So now we're moving inside. One of the problems that came up as part of this phase one work was we discovered a lot of asbestos inside the building. And that has to be addressed. The floors are all covered with asbestos floor tiles. There's asbestos wall sheathing in the mechanical rooms, and there's the mechanical systems in the building are basically all failed. So right now we had some funding to do the plumbing and septic systems out there. So we have an engineering firm now that's doing an evaluation of the buildings and is working on, as we speak, as a number that we can use going into budget process for December and January. So hopefully we'll have that project will be estimated out by then, and we'll have a hard number. But it's estimated to be somewhere in the $2.5 million range. And if we don't have this facility working, we'll have no place to house our seasonal officers. So, and the asbestos and the hazardous materials in the building that were identified in phase one was somewhat of an eye opener, and we didn't expect to find as much as we did. So needs to be addressed.
Okay, thanks. Questions or comments at this time? All right. Charlie, I just got one. Your 20 room count, does that include bedrooms or only bedrooms?
That's beds. And that's a number because of the way the zoning, the building code is that we need to sort of live with. So that's just, if you're over 20, you become a different category of building requiring extensive sprinkler systems and other building issues. So we're trying to keep the number of beds down to at 20.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm just curious because I was looking at it on a per bed breakdown of other town projects and local company employer housing type things I'm aware of. The other question I have is this work gets approved, it goes through, it's implemented. What do you see the useful life of this building being?
Oh, another 50 years, easy.
Yeah, the masonry makes it a little bit, even though it's clad, that's a nice feature.
It was
Okay,
built to very good government standards, and the thing that's inside is just because they used asbestos and lead paint, and mechanical systems that are, ancient.
So relative to the useful life and the number of bedrooms, it's actually relatively cheap housing on Nantucket for an essential need.
Yeah,
Okay,
and we have done well since 1985 with it, and really minimal dollars other than replacing roofs. It's been fairly inexpensive housing for 35 years.
okay. Other Christy K and then PJ. Oh, and I'm sorry, for the record, I just want to reflect Christy Ferrantella joined us a little bit ago. Hi, Christy, good morning. Christy.
Charlie, I can't remember, is there any funds remaining from phase one? Also, I didn't know if there was an opportunity at some point to walk through the property, just to see, just to check it out. And then also, do you have a company that will do the hazmat stuff?
Well, starting with phase one funds, we're just about closing out that project, and we actually came in about $9,000 under budget. So we had a good contractor out there with $1 million that we had appropriated for phase one. We actually came in on time and a little bit below budget, which was good. Two, Maybach Hazmat, the hazmat company, is scheduled to be out and do a full evaluation and give us a cost estimate as part of this engineering analysis we're doing now. I guess at the end of this month or the beginning of next month. So there's no mitigation being done. We're all in study phase right now, so that the hazmat mitigation or hazmat company Maybach will come out, and they're going to do whatever they need to do to give us a full report of what the problems and estimate of what it'll take to clean it up. And option three, anytime you want to come out, I'll walk you through the property. I'm off next week, but if you want to go out this afternoon, just give me a call and we'll go out. We can walk around.
I'd like to go.
Just a follow up. There is a company out here, I don't know if you're committed to them, called Alpine Environmental, and they've been doing work out here, but they do hazardous material. I've used them for a few of my clients, but it's just an option. And then at some point, yeah, if Jill or myself could meet up with you, and that'd be great.
Yeah, whatever you want, just give me a buzz here or send me an email and we can work something out.
Okay.
Great, thanks. So PJ left us. He's got another meeting to attend to. Charlie, just a quick question on the abatement. Is that in of itself above the 150,000? So it would be a DCAM certification required?
Probably. What will have to happen is all the flooring and walls would have to be stripped down. It'll be part of, I'm anticipating part of an overall contract that'll be let out to, because they'll have to fix the surfaces after they strip out the asbestos and lead and whatever else is in there. And then we'll have to redo that. So it'll be part of one larger contract. There'll be a sub, but if there's a local sub that's qualified to do it, the general contractor, I'm sure, would be more than happy to hire them because they could do it cheaper. So it's as long as they're certified by DEP, and if they're on Nantucket doing work, I'm sure they'd be grabbed right up if they're available to do the work.
Okay, thank you. So we got one more. I just want to point out for the folks at home who are watching this riveting capital program committee meeting that these projects all before us so far have been, projects we've reviewed in the past. And I think that the body cams are to some extent, but I think there's some newer aspects to these. So this will be a new item. And with that, Charlie, we're up to the last item on the list.
And the body camera video system, let's also say body and vehicle camera video system, because it's currently we have cameras in all of our police cruisers now, and that system is 20 years old. So it does need to be upgraded. And as I'm sure you're all aware, unless you're living under a rock somewhere, that police reform and body cameras have been a hot topic for the last year across the country. And in Massachusetts, there's pilot programs in Boston and with the state police to do body cameras. And we're, the state is also part of, they have a new police reform bill, which they're working through the regulations now. We anticipate that there'll be a requirement now that law enforcement, have body cameras. And it's not cheap, And the problem with a lot of it is not just camera, which is, you all have them on your iPhones, and which is not generally an inexpensive item, but it's the storage. It's the, what do you do with the video after it's captured? So you have an officer on a shift for 8-12 hours. You have 8-12 hours of video out there that needs to be stored, and then if you have that video that needs to be given to the court, you have to have somebody who needs to review the video, put the video in some sort of media format that people can get. And it is not a simple process. So, and all of it, to do all of the officers and all of the cars, it's expensive.
Okay, thanks. Christy K?
Charlie, is there a rule to, officers having their cameras on? Is there a regulation, or is it up to the officer? Just
Well,
curious.
that is been a very debated topic, because what happens is, without fail, if you don't require them to have it on all the time, the one time when you don't have it on is when something happens. So most agencies now are requiring them to be on all the time. There's been, except if they're going to the bathroom or they're going to these are things that come up.
Yeah.
And you don't really, till you really think about it, you have a camera attached to you for 24 hours a day or whatever it is. So it's a problem. So there's regulations out there now, and that most of the regulations require the cameras to be on when the officer is engaged in police work. So if he's into the station, he can turn it off. But if he's out of the station, it has to be on.
Okay. Other questions or comments at this time? Charlie, just a quick one on that. So is there a legal mandate with respect to, or some aspect of legal mandate with respect to some of the new laws that were passed in Massachusetts?
Not yet. There's great debate going on. They passed the police reform bill, which is over this a lot of generalisms with the law, but it said that this post committee will enact regulations. And they're in the regulations phase now of developing these things. And this is where all of the nuts and bolts are getting worked out about, how we can require body cameras. And the thing in Massachusetts is there's the Prop 2.5 law, which says if the state mandates anything on local government, they have to pay for it. So they're very careful about saying the difference between the mandate and recommended. And they're using a lot of recommended language, but what happens is it puts, municipalities sort of in a corner, because the standard is to have a body camera, but if you don't, then it's perceived against you. And the courts have done this with interview rooms in police stations. So if you take a confession from a suspect and you do not videotape it, the courts will infer that anything that the defendant then says happened against the police department. So they put this sort of, reverse requirement on you and said, we're not telling you you have to do it, but if you don't do it, we're going to hold it against you. And that's what they've done with recording of confessions. Most of the police committees in Massachusetts believe that's exactly what they'll do with body cameras. I'm not going to come out and say you have to have them, because if we say that, they have to pay for them. But we're going to say that if you don't have them, any allegations against you will be, interpreted against you unless you can prove it wasn't true. And that's kind of how it's going to go.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, just a curiosity. And then the system, the package itself, I'm just curious about the software package aspect of it. Does that actually break down and catalog, index for cross-referencing and later retrieval by shift and by personnel and by vehicle, or is that?
Yes, it does all of that, and will also has facilities to redact put the little blur on people who shouldn't be seen, it'll blur out.
On the bathroom breaks?
And it's done. You need a body to do it, but it's all indexed like that. And that's one of the reasons it's an expensive system. But most of the body camera images you're seeing in the news today are coming from Axon, which is this company that does it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments at this point? Okay. Jill?
Yeah, so now when you are looking for video footage, would you mind just telling us a few of the areas where you kind of are most vulnerable when you don't have cameras? Like maybe the houses don't have them. I assume a lot of the stores have them in places in town. It's easier to get footage. I'm just thinking about the long term.
Well, most video from private sources is of limited use, and the problem is when you look at these cameras, can you identify anybody in the image, or do you just see a figure? And that's one of the problems with home cameras or security systems. Very few of them are of sufficient quality and number that you can identify an individual on them. The cameras that we use in our police vehicles right now are Panasonic. They're very high quality, and we can identify people in them. And we use those cameras right now for traffic stops, drunk driving arrests, and those things. In the building, the police station, we have cameras everywhere, so everything's recorded in the police station on our internal system. But we get requests daily from attorneys who want copies of the cruiser vehicle, for traffic stops. When an officer is in the detention facility, and they're fighting with someone, or someone's staggering around or acting, being difficult, we have it all documented, and it's quite helpful. When we go to court, when we have someone who's now standing in court wearing a suit and tie, we can give a little different image of that person when they were in our detention facility doing whatever they were doing, and we usually get guilty pleas with them. So they're helpful, and I think a system, body cameras, I don't think would hurt us at all. But again, it's a good tool to have, because our officers out there are doing a good job, and 99.9% of the time, they're extremely polite and doing everything they're supposed to do. People have a different impression, and you see them every day, but I'm sure we'd be more than happy to have every video of every interaction with the public put out there, and we'll stand by them. So it's a good way to go.
Jill?
And one more question. So I understand, you're saying the state's not mandating it, because if they did, they'd have to pay for it.
Correct.
But I kind of hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that what you have now is working. The cameras on the cars and, throughout the areas that you need them. And so my question is, if this was something that was delayed, and again, we have to prioritize, how is the state going to, what's their retribution? That's what I didn't quite understand. What's their?
Well, what they adopt inferences. So if you make an arrest against someone and the person says, the officer mistreated me, the burden would shift normally to the person making the allegation to say, well, prove that the officer mistreated you. And so if you're going to court, the burden of proof is on the person making the allegation. So as I explained with our police interrogation videos, so we're interviewing a suspect for a crime, and the suspect admits to the crime while we're doing our interview. If we don't have that recorded, of that person confessing to that crime, and we go to court, the person can then say, I didn't say that when I was being interviewed. The officer is wrong. I never said it. The fact that we do not have a video of that confession, the court will then completely discount what the police say, and will take whatever the defendant says at his word. So they'll just basically say, too bad, police, you didn't record it. The confession is out, doesn't count. Now, if we record that confession and have that on video, we bring that into court. The defendant can say all he wants, and the court can't give an instruction to say, you have to disregard the video. And this is what happens in court. The judge will give an instruction to a jury to say, the lack of having the video can be used against the police department to disprove their, statements that their confession was valid. We believe that they will take the same stance of this police reform regulations for body cameras. So we get a complaint of police misconduct. The officer then has to prove the misconduct didn't occur, as opposed to the person proving that the misconduct did occur. So it's a burden shifting thing. So that's why they wouldn't have to pay for it, because they didn't mandate it, but they put in their regulations that this burden is now shifted because the police don't have the video.
Okay.
Since I thought you meant that maybe there was some sort of financial implication to you from the state.
No, there's no financial implication. And what they do and what they have done with, for instance, we're required to do reporting to the state for incident reporting, they call it NIBRS, it's National Incident-Based Reporting System. All of our crimes get reported to the FBI. So if we don't report these crimes to the FBI, they take us off the grant list. So we're no longer eligible for grants. And it's just like with the school department. If you don't comply with what they want you to do, you don't get school aid. And that's how the state forces compliance. If your highways aren't maintained in a certain way, you don't get Chapter 90 money. So
Right. I was
they're
just
not
wondering,
telling you
there's
you
a
have to-
timeline.
timeline, we're supposed to have the regulations adopted by July 1 of 2022.
Okay. All right, thanks. Interesting kind of line of thought. Charlie, on that what's the useful life of the existing equipment? Is it kind of phasing out with respect to software support or capability or capacity of the system itself? Or is there some aspect driving that?
The existing equipment in the vehicles has reached the end of its life. It's 15 to 20 years old, and we have to replace it with something. The question is, what do we replace it with, and how do we, do we do it piecemeal and then try to do one system later? Because the Axon system is a complete system. You kind of have to do everything at once. Or do we just sort of piecemeal as we go along? And we're kind of holding off on replacing our in-car system till we sort of get a direction on where we're going with the body camera system.
Okay. And then the other thing that came up, this is more a curiosity, not a capital matter, but it could come down to dollars and cents at some point. You mentioned having footage available for court. What's the length of retention? And the reason I ask is someone sues the police department. I don't know what the statute of limitations is, but maybe it's 6 years or 10 years. Is it impracticable to think that there's video retention for more than a year or 2 years?
Well, the good thing is under Massachusetts law, to bring a claim, civil rights claim in Massachusetts, you have to notify the town, the municipality, within 2 years of that.
Okay.
But what we do here is that if there's any incident that comes up, that the officers know if something happened, if we had to fight with somebody or something went bad, they tell us right away, save the video. So we automatically will flag it. So normally our retention, like for our inside cameras, could be only 2 weeks because it's a lot of video. So we record 24 hours a day. So, but we try to tell everyone, let us know right away if something comes up that we can pull that video. Because video storage, it's a lot. We have over a petabyte of storage right now, and we fill it up.
Great, interesting. Okay, well, I'd like to thank Deputy Chief for putting this together for us, and Rick for getting the package together. It's really useful to have it in the software. Even though quite a few of these we've seen time and again. So thanks for that, and we're going to move on. Unless there's any other questions, we're going to move on our agenda.
Yeah, great. And if anybody wants to have a look at that Loran facility, again, just get a hold of Rick or let me know direct, and we can set it up.
I'm sorry, if I may, Steve?
Yeah, go ahead, Chrissy. Okay.
Charlie, Jill and I are available. Would you have any time tomorrow at like 2? Or whatever, anytime tomorrow afternoon?
Hang on, let me look at my calendar. Yeah, tomorrow at 2 would be great if you want to meet out there.
That'd be great. I've never seen it. I've just seen it from the outside. So
Yeah,
Um,
Tomorrow at 2:00 out there at Mill Beach Road. Sure.
so- Thank you, Charlie. We'll see you there.
Okay, thank you.
Great, and thanks for putting the offer in. It'll be interesting and helpful to next budget cycle to reinstitute the liaisons. So we're getting a chance to see some of these things in advance. Rick, did you have a comment?
I was just going to ask Stephen, there's a couple out year items that we didn't touch on. I don't know if you just want me to put up the spreadsheet real quickly. There's the replacement of the duty firearms, and there's the public safety maintenance.
Oh, the FY 28, 29.
Yeah, they're way out in the, but then we, it's just.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Unless anyone has a burning desire to touch base on those, I would entertain that we forego those for now. Okay. No, thank you for mentioning, Rick. I appreciate it. I got to open my spreadsheet a little bit more. All right, so we're going to move on. Again, Charlie, thank you. We
All right.
appreciate your time
you all.
and the input. And we'll be reviewing these, the process. So try and get a good word in for yourself, and we'll go through our objective processing.
Thanks.
On the next item on the agenda is committee reports. And I don't know if anyone has anything in particular, but I was curious if there was any kind of a 10,000 foot on the facilities plan that I unfortunately wasn't able to make. Did that happen yet? I thought that was scheduled and occurred. If you don't have comment, neither Christy F or Jason have comments at the moment. Okay, Jason.
Yeah, really quick. It was pretty quick. The select board decided to go forward with putting the municipal building at 2 Fairgrounds Road. And once that decision is made, then everything else can fall into place. And we had talked about it for a lot, but never been a formal, like, this is the direction we're going, and here's why. And here's all the kind of the different challenges and the benefits. And so at town meeting this next year, there'll be some type of something, whether it's feasibility or engineering, or that process will start. I don't know what that number is. And that was on the quicker side of things. What took longer was the kind of brainstorming session on the DPW facilities, of moving them potentially to the kind of Delta Fields area, Novadear Farm Road, the airport land, or Shadbush, which is the shooting park is going to go. And it kind of turned into a little bit of how it's not going to work. And so we decided to keep exploring it and working with the airport and kind of exploring all those different hurdles and challenges. So the DPW facilities is still kind of just looking out. Nothing's going to be decided this year. And so it's not going to affect the capital committee process. But just for your information of, can we shore up the current facilities and build something there? Or we need to make this decision of which direction we're going to go. So I can tell you offline some more comments that were made, and got Art and Noah interested. But I guess the really positive part of it is, the select board at least is starting to put their, I'm trying to say, efforts behind moving the municipal buildings to Fairgrounds Road, and not go like, oh, should we do it downtown? Should we do this? And so we kind of decided, like, what would stay at 16 Broad Street, which would be a lot, which would still keep everybody coming downtown. And no decisions on 20 South Water, but moving pretty much, I wouldn't say everything, but quite a bit to Fairgrounds Road.
Okay, thank you. No, that's helpful information. I appreciate it. Anyone have any comments or on that? Christy, go ahead.
I just didn't know if there was any accommodation for whether it's town or county, or if that's where the line is, or just
Yeah,
curious.
so the original, or the idea right now is, I'm gonna give you a little bit of my opinion on this too, but the courts, RMV, town clerk, registry of deeds would all stay at 16 Broad Street. So really, you're only moving out HR, housing, DEI office, and town administration, which doesn't bring a lot of people downtown, right? It's mostly, if you look at RMV, courts, the courts have been asking for more room for decades. RMV's been asking for more room for decades. So there's benefits of moving RMV downstairs, having more room, and the courts have more room to put, families who are dealing with domestic issues, divorce, don't actually have to see each other and sit next to each other while they're waiting. Things like that, that'll that will benefit. So there's still a lot going on. Like the main heart of 16 Broad Street will still be there.
Interesting.
Good
A
point.
couple quick comments. I think in reverse, that idea of the much needed expansion down there, which I think will serve very useful purposes. I think the key to that is going to be finding an effective way to articulate that to the community. With respect to the DPW, I'm just going to hit the low hanging fruit of, if you envision the central trunk of travel for the heavyweight vehicles, and the DPW is really geared up their rolling stock, Prospect Street, Quaker, Matticat Road. It seems to me, and again, I know this is low hanging fruit and there may be other kind of priority type considerations, but getting that out onto the state funded road of Milestone, which is before the trucks are traveling that main trunk and then they can branch off to different parts of the island is a little bit appealing. And then the idea of getting it out of the stormwater surge area is, I think, a great thing too. I realize there's a lot of other priorities and considerations, but those were just some points that occurred to me. Any other thoughts from anyone on those? Okay, great. Thanks, Jason. Really appreciate that.
Point, Stephen.
Yep. Chrissy?
I was just saying, good point. Yeah,
Sure, thanks.
my coastal resiliency membership. Good point.
Got it. Good of the order. We're heading in the right direction. It's still early. Jason?
Yeah, just a committee report. So I went to the school last night and listened to the plan for all their facilities, phase, whatever, things that we've already seen. And I suggested, we talked afterwards and thought that they should come back to Capcom because the numbers have changed significantly and they had better visuals for us and some different explanations. So I said, I don't think it's going to be an hour, but it might help for them to come back for 15, 20 minutes and give an update. I was the only select board member or Capcom member there. And so it got really in the weeds on turf. And I think Deputy Chief had said that, in 2 months, the two of their bids increased 40%.
Mm.
And so they're going to have to come back to not the drawing board, but come back with different numbers and kind of how they're going to talk about it and different benefits. So I learned a little more last night than I did the first time they came to Capcom. So I don't know if we can fit it in, but I suggested maybe Diane and you talking and then coming back at some point.
No, I appreciate that. It's good feedback. And if you think that there's going to be some additional information or a broadening of the information that we received, that'll be helpful in us processing it. That's one of the reasons it's great for our members to go to these. So if she reaches out to me, I'll work that out and through Rick, and we'll get something scheduled. Okay, great. Date of our next meeting is the 9th at 10 a.m. And that'll be again via Zoom. And with that, I would love it. Oh, Rick.
Sorry, just a quick one administratively. So, Stephen, all of the, I would say 80% of the full stock of capital programs has now been advanced to the capital committee. So all the projects are there, barring the airport is not there. And then DPW is a little bit fragmented. Libby hasn't finished reviewing it all, and with Rob leaving, but the vast majority of the projects are there now for you to look at. And then in terms of Rory's, those are also available now on all projects that have been advanced. You may encounter a Rory form that has an additional member, like Peter McEachern may still be on it, but it doesn't change anything. Everybody on the current committee is currently on the Rory form. Doesn't matter if somebody leaves something blank, it doesn't change the math on the Rory. And then finally, Jason and Richard, you guys were both kind enough to send back that form. I wonder if I could, because I didn't get them from everybody, I'm not sure I want to go to the developer and say, can you just do Richard's and Jason's? Any chance I could ask you guys to go put those back in the system yourselves manually?
Sure.
The spreadsheet you sent me. Richard, you did school and IT. Jason, you did some as well. I don't know if it might just be easier if you guys just go put them, easier for, maybe not for you, but to just go put them back in yourself. If it's a problem, let me know. I'll developer to do it. Otherwise.
I have a question for you, Rick, while you're on this. So I just logged in today and I was filling out as I was listening. And if it says completed, we don't need to do that, right? That was from a previous year.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So capital committee review, that's what we're looking for on the CRF
right.
status.
That's correct.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, that's great. So guys, I think what we'll do is if we find one that's Peter McEachern, we'll take a vote whether we're going to have a competition to fill it out and see who's closest to what Peter would have done, and the closest gets an ice cream. On the Rory's, I'm glad you brought that up, Rick. It's an important element of what we haven't been doing. I'm glad to hear that they're fully functional. And what I'd like to do for the administrative side is ask that we add Rory review as the immediately following the capital requests item on the agenda going forward. So then that way, if there's a question or comment by any of the membership, we have built-in time to address those. I think that was an important aspect of what we did in the past. And along those lines, after I field Jason's question, I'll ask my question in advance if anyone would like to comment on or get feedback on Rory's for the request that we did today. Jason?
Yeah, I think I agree, having that agenda item will be really good, because there's been times where, you know, I wasn't great last year, but there have been times where I thought I filled it out and it didn't come in. So it's almost like a little update if it's you, Rick, or Stephen, like, hey, let's, you know, we're a little behind. Let's, you know, this didn't come in. Just so at the end of our time here, we're not way behind.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then, so Rick, just to flesh that out a little bit, I think the component would be that it's a two-part with respect to the Rory. One is just an update on outstanding, which really can just be, you know, like a name and you've got 2 or 3 you got to get in. And hopefully that will keep people on track. You and I can discuss if there's a report functionality within the software yet to be able to do that simply. I think there was a spreadsheet we generated when Brian and I were doing it. But that functionality aside, the other aspect would be actually discussing the particular request from that meeting. So there'd be a 2-parter on that. Any other comments or thoughts? Okay, great. Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Just when you fill out the Rorys, make sure down in the bottom left-hand corner after you put it in, you hit save rankings, right? Just to make sure it sticks, right? Stephen, there isn't a report I'm concerned about. I know somehow last year you were able to see who had done what.
Yeah.
But short of, I think, clicking on each project and seeing who's done it, I don't think we have a way of doing that.
Okay, so I think this is definitely something with the SQL, they can pull a report. Yeah. It'll be super simple. I'm not suggesting it's something they're going to be able to do tomorrow, but it would be a good functionality to have. So if that's something you could explore, I'd appreciate it. And then we can talk about it some more. And yeah, you know, it'll be worthwhile to have, because tracking these down later on is problematic for everyone. And the idea of clicking a button and getting a report is a good one. There could be some functionality to that too, because people may forget that have forgotten your pro tip to click save, and they may not realize they may have thought they turned in Rory's and they didn't.
Yeah.
So that would be good. All right. Well, look, guys, appreciate your time, Rick, for everything you've been putting into this. And with that, I would like a motion, please, to adjourn. And thank you, Richard, on your motion.
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Okay, and myself. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.